A global security conference being held at a time when the world seems increasingly volatile. In Munich, a call for a ceasefire in Gaza is growing louder, also among those who so far unconditionally supported Israel's war.
I made very clear that the right of self-defense also knows limits within the international humanitarian law, and this is why I called for safe corridors, safe spaces, and also over the last 3 months I always called for humanitarian supply within Gaza, and the situation is getting worse, and yes, this is why we are pushing way harder on the humanitarian, that border crossings are being opened, trucks are being allowed inside again.
During her visit to Israel this week, Baerbock urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to refrain from a ground offensive in Rafah, a clear change in tone coming from Germany that historically has strong ties with Israel. The organizer of the conference, Christoph Heusgen, had criticized his government for its unconditional support.
We have to go by the rule of law, we have to go by the international humanitarian law, by Security Council resolutions, and we have to abide by this. And if this doesn't happen, you have to call a spade a spade.
Germany has been wrong on its stance not to call for a ceasefire for all these months?
I think 150 countries of the UN asked for a ceasefire. If you see the appeal of the UN organizations, I think the only way out is to ask for a ceasefire to end the suffering of the people.
The UN High Commissioner for Refugees told Al Jazeera that any Israeli attempt to push people in Rafah across the border into Egypt will be disastrous.
This would be very bad for the Palestinian people. It would be very bad for Egypt to have to manage such a terrible catastrophe, and it would be really extremely dangerous for the future of the peace process, which everybody should care about more than anything else at this point.
While European countries have been divided on their response to the war in Gaza, their tone seems to be changing now due to the dire situation in Rafah. With all the key players present here in Munich, there is some hope of a more unified stance on Israel's aggression. Vaessen, Al Jazeera, Munich.